you in this community, and they're doing us no good. Second of all, they're thinking that you will forget the fact that between, say, our southern border and Houston, there is a whole lot of territory that is under the jurisdiction of the DPS, the state, that follows the same policies of not being immigration patrol and responding to crime and investigating crime. Now, I'm not saying that Governor Perry is responsible for everything that happens, but the idea that somehow people parachute into Houston without crossing jurisdictions for the DPS is absurd. That's ridiculous.
Follow up. It sounded as though, and if I sound cynical, I always am on this particular issue, because, again, you talked a lot about your mayoral experience.
Right.
You talked a lot about how not to do it, but very little about what you've learned as mayor that you will apply as governor. And I know that's exactly what these people are looking for.
Okay, well, I mean, first thing I do is I won't give a Texas driver's license to somebody who's been a convicted felon. Okay? Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. I mean, we have had exactly no illegal. We will not give a driver's license to somebody who's undocumented. And I'm going to go. We have people who are undocumented who have committed serious crimes who have Texas driver's license. That's wrong. Period. When somebody gets out of the Texas Department of Corrections, I want to make sure that somebody from ICE is there to get them going. I think there needs to be more funds spent, particularly in those areas along the border and the places that are the points of destination, so that if we do have some of these narco traffickers and drug traffickers, we have the resources to do that. Every day, our police go on joint raids with ICE. We need more of that. There are joint raids against these gangs who are dealing narcotics and other things. That's what we need to be doing.
His point was, and again, a sentiment of the audience, yeah. I don't think anyone wants to wait for an illegal to make a felony. That's the issue that people have. And so when someone is come across, we find that they're illegal, isn't that the time that they should be dealt with in even the most minor of offenses?
Well, right now we have the most minor offenses with fingerprint. If you want to take local law enforcement off of responding to 911 calls to go in and checking and trying to determine the citizenship status of everybody who's worked in the yards or janitorial services of everybody here, then you will not be able to respond to those 911 calls and do those investigations. I will tell you that for a fact. So
let me just one more follow-up on this. You mentioned that your process and what it entails, including sending records to the state, and at that point, you feel like that process should continue with ICE. I guess a lot of people here would say, why aren't you taking people who do not prove to be, or when you're a mayor, prove to not meet the documentation requirements? Why wasn't the mayor's office notifying ICE?
We were.
Okay, well, that's not what you said.
No, we were. I mean, you know, ICE has complete access to our jail since 2006. I changed the policies on that. We changed the policies on that. ICE has complete access. So the people who are fingerprinted, who don't have identification, now you can run stuff on people who do have an identification. You can run against the databases based on their identifications. It's really a problem you have with the people who don't have identification, and then you need to do. So we have full cooperation with ICE, period, end of story.
And so it's routine for your office, was routine for your office to notify ICE when someone did not meet documentation requirements?
This is the way it works. It's not the mayor's office, it's the compute. In HPD, there's a big computer bank maintained in New England. And when somebody is fingerprinted or somebody who's ID'd, they're run against that data bank. There are two databases that have now been merged. That is the immigration database and the FBI database. They were not merged until something called a Secure Community Programs and about a multi-billion-dollar investment that the federal government made. Now those two databases are merged. And ICE, it's not somebody notifies. I mean, you would have, it is that ICE automatically, ICE runs this. They get it. They get the results. They get the results of whatever the hit is. And they have access to pick up anybody.
Another big question commonly asked was about Second Amendment rights, which to me is very interesting to me because we've been characterized as a group, and I consider myself a part of the Tea Party movement, as informal as we are, but we're characterized as only caring about money issues, but we're very concerned about safety and security issues, especially in a time like this. I'd like to get your perspective Another very commonly asked question on Second Amendment rights.
I support the right to bear arms. I think it's an important right, and I think it's, you know, I own a handgun, and you know, I think it's a basic right in the Constitution, and I think that the correct decision for the Supreme Court to make on their case currently pending in the Supreme Court is to say that that right is incorporated, the Second Amendment is incorporated by the 14th Amendment to apply to the states. That's what I think.
Well, and specifically, Texas has, you know, a concealed weapon law that, you know, has been often criticized by those, particularly in the left. And it is something that's somewhat uniquely Texan, you know, and it's even Jay Leno likes to comment on those type of things. Your thoughts on the concealed weapon law in the state of Texas?
That's people's rights. I agree with it. And I'll just say to NRA, I forgot where they put me in. It was like a B grade because there was one thing. I agreed with the NRA position on everything except one thing. So y'all can decide your common sense. I don't believe that. You remember what I said about mandates and things coming down from Austin? And I said that the parents and faculty and students at public institutions of higher educations, those individuals should make their decisions concerning the guns on the campus, rather than having that dictated from Austin. So, I mean, everything else, that was it. So I'm you know, being forthright. That was the only one. But
you mentioned earlier,
and the person who I've relied on most heavily is Land Commissioner Patterson to give me advice on these issues.
You mentioned earlier you're concerned about the financial state of the state. You know, and mentioned the fact that people are seeking revenues from various sources. What is your thoughts about a state income tax, which is something that continues to get rumblings on occasion here in the state of Texas?
It's unconstitutional, and
so you wouldn't pursue anything like that?
No.
And what do you think of the current franchise tax?
The one that Perry raised?
Right.
Well, I think it is, how would I say it? I've met a whole lot of businesses where they couldn't understand why somebody in the government couldn't distinguish between their revenues and how much money they made. You know, to have a tax on revenues not taking into account how much money you make is a problem. But, you know, will I sit here and tell you that I'm going to know every intricacy of the state tax code? No, I can't do that.
Would that be a bill that you would consider repealing?
Well, it depends on whose taxes would have to be raised, doesn't it?
No, it depends on the legality of that law. As you pointed out yourself, it's really taxation without representation of money that's actually earned. So I think it is a
you know, look. I mean, you know, I'm not here to defend Governor Perry. I think you noticed that. But, you know, we do have people who do go to work every day, and a difference between him and me is that when it comes to issues of government, I work with everybody, and I don't pay attention to the party lines and divide up into teams. I want to get some buy-in. And if I'm going to start telling somebody, here's a tax I'm going to cut, and then I'm not going to do what he does, which tells people, hey, look, I cut your property tax, without telling you, well, he's raising some other tax. You know what I'm saying? We've all seen it. When there were modest cuts in the payroll tax on employers, he had big press conferences saying that this was a force for job creation in the state, and this helped boost jobs in the state. He took credit for that. And then when they decided last year for this year to almost double it, wiping out these modest decreases in the past, he wasn't there doing the press conference saying, well, now I'm taking away all those jobs during the middle of a recession. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes you got to, you know, if you're in government, nobody likes a tax, but you got to get the bills paid.